Zero Waste Seattle has gone and put pressure on the city council to say, we don't want phone books anymore. And so now, just 3 weeks ago, they passed an ordinance that you will not receive phone books unless you ask for them. They were filling up even the recycling bins, and recycling cannot get us to zero waste. We need to have all of the components. I think they were lucky enough to have the zero waste ferry to help them reduce their waste. But the arts are a great way to increase awareness of the public. New York City, they have a focus here on producer responsibility. They set a law up in 2008 that all materials, electronic materials, would have to be managed by the manufacturer. And the industry did not like this idea. There was a year that they had to come up with a plan so that they'd start to take back to the materials and pay for the collection. 2 days before the plan was due, they sued the city and said, you don't have the constitutional authority to regulate us to do this. Well, this created a big incident, and over 18 states and attorney generals from the different states went in support of the city against the industry, and it backfired on the industry. By 2009, the state of New York, not just the city of New York, but the whole state, adopted a producer responsibility law so that now every city in the whole state has producer responsibility. There's a great momentum here and a real strong tide that we're seeing for producer responsibility. Next city, Austin, Texas. When you think of Texas, you don't always think of great recycling programs, but this city has some really good ones. So we talked about source reduction. Next, we're going to talk about reuse. In this example, we have skilled workers that have been taught how to take apart buildings so that they can be used again. The materials can be used again and be sold again. The building that you see at the bottom here, you can see in the initial part, and then removing the materials, and then there's no longer any materials there. They've all been sent to a reuse facility. One of the first facilities of this kind was established in Austin, Texas. Now there's 650 across the United States. A great example of creating jobs, good paying jobs, and also reducing waste. San Diego, California, this is where I'm from. We have a big problem with construction and demolition material. Back in 2005, we said the amount of material that we saw in the trash that was construction demolition material was 35%. This is concrete, this is wood, this is metal, drywall, all these materials that have markets, that have the ability to be recycled. Some of the problems that we saw was that number one, there wasn't a facility that could take mixed material. They would only take the source separated material, which is much more economical to have it separated, but not all of them were separated. So what we did was two things. The first one was that we set up a requirement that all builders have to do a plan to recycle before they're allowed to start constructing. And they have to put down a deposit where if they choose not to recycle and let us know and prove that they've recycled through receipts, then they don't get their money back. So this was a very effective way to ensure that recycling happens. Also, in order to spur industry to create a facility that could handle mixed materials, like you see right here, and the county established a grant of $500,000 to any company that would choose to site a facility. Well, the facility that ended up getting sited was valued over $10 million. So it was a great investment in spurring the industry to create the infrastructure that we needed. You're going to see this picture, I think, again, while we're here. This is a key element of zero waste, which is a resource recovery park. You see areas for reuse, areas for recycling, areas for compost, areas for soil production, and also construction demolition materials. All of those are located at the same location as a landfill. The landfill would be the last stop in the chain, and it would only be used if you could not separate materials before you got to this spot. The important part here is that they're all located in the same footprint. San Luis Obispo, also in California, has a very good resource recovery park where you can see there's areas all around where they'll take metals, concrete materials, all the materials that we talked about before. People take their materials separated, drop them off to the correct location, and if they choose not to do that, they are charged an additional fee. So there's an incentive first that you save money by dropping it off, but you also are penalized if you choose not to recycle. San Francisco, again, another city with a very high recycling rate. Not as big as Los Angeles, but their recycling rate is even higher, 77%. They have done a great job on focusing on commercial recycling programs for organic material. They have great support from the restaurant community, the hotels, the markets, and they do a collection on the curbside for the restaurants. And you involve all people from the restaurants to the compost producers to the farmers. One thing I like is their graphics program that they use on their trucks. They show a graphic image of what the compost material looks like, and they show in the middle on the cart that you or the business that is given what the goal is in the product that will be produced on the end, is the food that you will be eating. So it allows the participants to see that the results of their actions will be a positive impact. Portland, Oregon. This one we're going to talk about from the household or the apartment side. They promote composting in your backyard, which is probably the best because you don't need to take it anywhere, as we've heard from other people this morning. There's less carbon footprint when you do it that way, so they offer that program. They offer the bins for composting at low rates. They train people in the neighborhoods how to use them. But they also offer a curbside collection at the house. And one of the ways that they were able to pay for this is that they originally had trash every week picked up, and recycling and organics picked up every 2 weeks. When they changed this program so that everyone got the organic recycling bin, they made organics and recycling every week and trash every 2 weeks. And if you wanted to have your trash picked up more frequently, you'd pay double. So it offers a convenient opportunity and also rewards people that recycle. San Jose, California. In most of California and in a lot of the US, we are collecting all materials commingled. All the materials you see here, papers, plastics, metals, glass, they're all collected commingly, and they're sent to a facility which uses manual labor and technology to separate the materials into different types. They've used the pay-as-you-throw system, which I've heard many people talk about. Just really quickly to tell you, the smallest size container is the least price, and it doubles and triples almost in the cost. So you have a financial incentive to recycle more. This is actually your trash bin, and your recycling bin is the largest size. That's the default for everyone. The one side that's important to note on a system like this is that you have to have enforcement. You can't just allow people to have that system, because some people will take advantage of it, and they'll say, well, I want the smallest size trash bin, but then they'll put trash in the recycling. So in order to make sure a system like this works, especially on the initial part, you need to make sure that you enforce that and that you do a lot of education. Back to San Diego, sorry, it's where I'm from, I have to tell you about it. There's apartment and condominium recycling programs. They're very important. I really like the program that I saw that Wonsidler is doing here. And we do a program where we offer recycling containers to people at all the apartments and condominiums that we work with. We do a lot of education. We talk to each resident. We go from door to door and talk to them for half a minute. We do presentations at the facility for both the children and the adults. And one of the important things that you need to remember, in addition to the education for working with facilities like these, is that recycling needs to be just as easy as trash. It needs to be on the same footing, same amount of space, same amount of convenience, same amount of volume as trash, so that you can increase it and reduce that waste as much as possible. But that has to be the foundation of it. So we've worked with the haulers and come up with a system where the trash and the recycling are the same size, and that's just the beginning, just to get started. Boulder, Colorado. All right, we're moving a little farther east. This is an example of special event recycling. It's a great way to encourage people to learn about zero waste. Some people just hear about the concept. They need to see it in action in order to believe that it's a reality. Fairs and festivals are a perfect place to teach people. At these fairs and festivals, the staff from this nonprofit organization goes and works with the vendors to say that anything that you sell here has to either be recyclable or compostable. There cannot be any trash, and the important part is to work with them in advance of the program. If there are any vendors that are producing materials initially that are not recyclable or compostable, the organization offers them alternatives. So when you walk into the, right as you walk into the fair, you see this, you're entering a zero waste zone. So it's critical for the nonprofit sector to get involved in the planning of these events. Atlanta, Georgia. Again, we're talking about specific zones. This one's, I think, an interesting example. The city of Atlanta does not have a zero waste goal. They do have some good recycling programs, but they haven't really taken the next step. Businesses on their own have decided that they want to act as a kind of a catalyst for the region. What happened was this area receives a lot of tourism and a lot of conventions. This particular convention center lost one of their conventions to another city in that region, in the southern part of the U.S., because they weren't as environmentally friendly as the other one. So after they lost this conference, they said, we need to do something to change it so that we can be on the same level. So what they did was they took the convention center, the nearby hotels, the nearby restaurants, and they created zero waste infrastructure right there for that area. So now they've diverted in this program in just the last year over 2,000 tons of food waste that was collected. Nantucket, Massachusetts. This is all the way on the East Coast. It's an island as well. This community has an unusual situation since they're so far from land. I guess it's somewhat similar to Hawaii, except it's not as far. In the northeast part of the United States, it's very expensive to landfill. It can be over $100 a ton. And so this community has to ship everything to the landfill if that was their choice. And they also had leaking landfills. They decided that this wasn't appropriate for them. They were very beautiful. Similar to Florianopolis, not as pretty, but a nice place. But they have another very beautiful environment there, and they want to show the residents and the tourists that they care about the environment. So they put a lot of money into setting up resource recovery parks, into reverse vending machines to make recycling as convenient as possible. They also have deposits on the containers. They have infrastructure, or mandatory recycling, where they actually do enforcement at people's home level. They have reuse stores, and they're composting all their material. And I've heard in one of the years preceding, right now they're at 97% waste diversion. Preceding years, they were mining the landfill, and they actually got above zero waste. So let's see that as an example, going back to mine the landfills next. My closing point is that once you implement all of these programs, you'll have an opportunity to kick back, put your shoes up, have a beer, and be able to enjoy your zero waste lifestyle. Thank you.